actually, what the idea is that you just give a short kick-off for the JU and a short kick-off for the IA, and you just say something more in depth about Crystal, EU about Arrowhead, our APPs, and just open questions.
First of all, welcome to those of you who finally made it. I heard that even this morning there was a big traffic jam, but not any longer due to the snow, but due to a lot of demonstration and manifestation outside. So here we are at the Artemis Spring event, one of our regular events that we are exercising in the course of our overall effort. And this morning we had a very nice overview by Erik Schütz, who is responsible for the entire legal entity for this joint undertaking. And from my point of view, it was very well described the different phases that we went through in this overall big effort. And perhaps he can describe a little bit in his own word as this morning what we went through. We are now in a final phase, and we can really show the achievements of what we did in the past years, and we are also preparing the future, which will be slightly different from what we are doing at the moment, but this will be subject to discussion. Perhaps Erik, you would start.
Well, yes, I can say a few words. Artemis, the preparatory work for Artemis started in 2004, so long time ago, and I've been involved since 2004. Now, the real start was in 2008, and since 2008, it's now the 6th year that we have a goal, and the 6th goal, the last one. I think over 6 years, a lot has happened. Okay? When we started in the first goal, we even didn't know what type of projects submission, what kind of proposal we would receive. Would the people behave like a traditional standard FP7 goal for proposals? Or would there be some other kind of alliances, grouping of people? We wanted to say this must be industry driven. So we were expecting the industry at large, and I will say it only once, each time I say industry, it's the industry ecosystem, large enterprises, which are the skeleton, SMEs, which are complementing nicely, and the absolutely needed work done by academics in the universities and research institutes. So that's the industry ecosystem. And we didn't know what the behavior would be. And when you look now back to all these projects of the first year, they are all finished. So we can have a better view, more accurate on what happened, because when you evaluate promises, potential, and then you review year after year what is done. But at the end, you can make a better status. And we realize now that in the first year, we had our biggest, largest standard project. It was CESAR, and you heard many times about that. I think we will realize that the example of CESAR and the dissemination, the follow-up of CESAR has been essential in Artemis. I said this morning, Artemis is the largest program ever in Europe on safety critical systems. But it all started with CESAR the first year, and some other projects, but mainly CESAR as the first element of that skeleton, that essential characteristic of Artemis. And you have here examples of what's the last development of Artemis. So we started with unknown projects. We discovered that our Think Big was indeed applied and was well perceived and received by the industry. And as I said, it's Think Big. This means very large projects complemented by ad hoc, focused, smaller initiatives, smaller projects. That was the start. Then we saw the effect of this CESAR project and others generating other projects, so that when you were looking at the program, it was obvious that there were some clustering of projects, because one project was impacting the others, and so on. And we could find back, by the way, a same core group or same, or sometimes changing, but some people involved in many different projects of the same type of interlinked, let's say. And the last step after this cluster is these AIPPs, where at the end we want to have the consolidation across Europe in a pan-European way, as much as possible, of what has been developed earlier in project and what is then done, what is then more developed towards the market. So with these developments which are closer to the market, but which are using what has been done before, and which are also promoting that across Europe. Because if you, I strongly believe that if you have something valuable, but you give it only to one company, that's one way to favor that company, but also to distribute across Europe. But it's not the most efficient way. The most efficient way is to have people involved in many countries, in almost all countries, and looking in the same direction, using the same platform or similar platforms. And that's what these gentlemen have just started, actually. Today, AIPPs are a concept, a vision, and they have to make it a reality.
They are also having the structure now in place.
Yeah,
they have the partners, and
they have to deliver now.
They have to deliver, but they are just.
But they are busy. Yeah. They are busy.
And to perhaps pick up the idea, when we started, we were really doing a kind of consolidation. The first projects were very much research and knowledge generation driven. And now what we are doing in the last phase is we are bringing this knowledge that has been generated into application. And that is exactly the instrument of the Artemis innovation pilot projects. And it is also very important that during the first phase of Artemis, we were establishing a kind of community which is starting to build trust among themselves. That is very important. Originally, especially all the industrial partners, they were essentially competitors. We are still competitors, but we recognize that we can make progress much better if we are collaborating. And based on the trust of the first years, now they are starting to enter into a phase where they are preparing market entrance, where they are preparing innovation to go into products. And based on the community that has been established in the recent years, I think now the time is ready to go. And they are forming now the cluster, the core, and these gentlemen can explain to you. But it's also very interesting, what we heard this morning is that around these nucleons that have been formed, there is now a community of other interested parties coming and asking, could we contribute? Could we benefit from that? That is also one of the roles that we see in Artemis. We are providing best practices. We are providing a kind of cooking recipe, how we could benefit in some of these very critical areas, because most of the stuff that we are doing here is not that simple. We are talking here about very complex, in many cases, safety critical systems, and these contributions are allowing us to do much better here and not to restart from scratch again. So that is perhaps this third phase in which we are in now with the innovation pilot projects. Perhaps we can have just a short explanation. I don't know if you all had the time to listen to the presentation this morning. Then you heard already essentially about our AIPPs, about Crystal, about Arrowhead, but perhaps you just summarize what is the content so that those who did not have the time can get a feeling of what we are doing here. That's a good start. Okay. Is that okay for you? We don't want to do a monologue. You have to also ask, of course, but you have to get a little bit background.
Good. I'd like to present or talk a little bit about the Crystal project, which is
one of the big two IPP projects, and it is all about safety critical system engineering. And in order just to make sure that we have the same understanding what is safety critical system engineering, we have it in our aerospace industry. We have, for instance, autopilots. We have a door closing system, so it is safety critical that the door keeps closed on the aeroplane if you're flying around. If you think about the healthcare industry, then you see that the patients need just as much X-ray as you can survive, actually. So this is very important. Other things like in the automotive industry, we have this new generation automatic brake system, emergency brake systems, distance control. This is very safety critical because there might be an emergency brake even if there's no car and you cause an accident by that, or other important safety critical systems in this regard. Now, the Crystal project has 71 partners spread around Europe from 10 different countries. Our biggest countries are Netherlands, Germany, France, Austria, but closely followed by Italy, Spain, United Kingdom, Belgium, and Czech Republic. Have I got everything? Okay. Then this is across the different domains, industrial domains. We have the automotive industry, we have the aerospace industry, with big partners in this regard, EADS, for instance, Airbus, Thales, and Honeywell, as well as Alenia. We have also the healthcare industry with Philips and Barcor. We have the rail industry with some important partners in Italy, Ansaldo, Thales, yeah. And in the automotive industry, you know, all the players, Daimler, Volvo, Fiat, ABL is also part of this community. Now, our approach is a user-driven approach and an industrial approach, which is based on applications. So the companies have already defined user stories and use cases which are relevant for the development of this embedded critical systems development. And based on these user stories, we try to identify technology bricks, as we call them, and methods. So technology bricks are development tools, software tools and products, or components which you can use in different areas. These can also be standards or interfaces in order to make the tool interoperable. And this can be methodologies like this model-based system engineering, like this multi-variate system engineering, multi-viewpoint. So these are some buzzwords in this regard, in this direction. Good. I think there was one important discussion in the morning. What is the AIP really bringing? Is this a research project, another big research project? And I would like to mention here that in previous research projects there have been developed a lot of results, like in the CISA RTP, what we have heard in the morning, or in the MPAT, IFAS. So in other projects there have been developed a lot of methodologies, interfaces, processes, and so on. And what we are trying to do in the AIPP is to take these raw diamonds, to take this core of the development and refine it, make it more mature, and also to polish it. And I've heard a very interesting wording in the morning, to polish it to a diamond and even to a crystal, which makes us very happy because our project is named Crystal. And yeah, that's the way we would like to improve and contribute to this innovative ecosystem which is being formed by Artemis.
When did you start with the project?
The official start will be on 1st of May this year. we had a preparation phase of 1 year. So the important thing of such a big project is that you develop common objectives, that you have your same target, because 72 companies to guide is very complicated and challenging, I would say. So you have to form your specific targets and bring everybody on the same road.
Okay, so that was the Crystal project. Jaka, perhaps you could explain a little bit about quite a different aspect, showing the broad area of application that we are going into.
I'm heading the Arrowhead project, which has a focus on automation for production and energy systems. And how do we build automation for these systems into the future? These systems are a big portion of society challenges regarding environmental aspects, energy aspects, and water aspects, etc. And regarding all these societal challenges, automation is regarded by very many people as the key technology to actually address these challenges. And how to address these challenges, there are projections by many organizations, companies, Artemis, such that we're going to see an enormous amount of devices that will be involved in this type of automation systems. We are talking about figures like 50 billion devices, 40 billion, 100 billion. There are a number of predictions on this. Considering that we are something like 6-7 billion people on the globe, and that with current technologies we need a certain amount of engineering time to configure and install and wire up and whatever every of these devices. We can't live with our current technologies. We need to move into a next generation of technologies. This has been identified by a number of projects before, making solutions for one-off application. And these solutions, yes, they work, but the solution for application in like the water industry and the solution for the application in the industry, they don't work together. So what we're looking forward to here is see whether we can work on the challenge of creating the interoperability between the already existing technologies and then enabling the larger, so to speak, automation ecosystem, making use of already existing technology, already used legacy technology, and the upcoming new technology where a large amount of industries are moving right now. Addressing production, which is a very interesting part for European development and jobs in Europe and so on. Addressing energy, which is important to our society overall. And right now we are gathering 77 partners here in Europe. 1/4 of them large enterprises. No, 1/3 large enterprises. 1/3 SMEs, or a little bit more than 2/3 are companies, and then they've identified a number of research partners, universities, institutes. They said, we want you guys to join us to see whether we can start to push a snowball, creating an ecosystem. It's very clear that a fair number of other companies already are contacting us, saying, how do we get in contact with you? Can we join? And so on. So this is our first attempt. One of the efforts by the ARP being so big, we can be a snowball that is at least big enough to begin with, that can create the impact, both for the industry, but also for the society.
Okay, so thank you very much. You have now got an idea about 2 application projects which are the final stage of our effort. And I would just like to add as a kind of summary, and then we could enter into discussion, a statement concerning European technology position. During the recent years, we had a lot of discussion due to the entire situation around us on the economical, on the environmental side, on societal changes. And you will see also our research agenda is very much driven by the question, how could we cope, how could we contribute to solving these societal changes. At the moment, the entire discussion is very much focused on societal challenges. But my statement is, we should not forget that we in Europe need very good position in technology. We need technology in order to handle these societal challenges. Only via a very strong technology position in various domains. It's not only the embedded systems, but also, and perhaps dominantly, the embedded systems industry. We need this position to be able to be competitive and to have Europe staying ahead, or at least in a very good economical position. Just discussing about the problems will not help us. Therefore, we are trying to provide solutions. We are trying to push forward the technology position of Europe to help our economy to really stay in front. And this, I think, we cannot emphasize enough. Sometimes in the discussions with, sorry to say, various institutions, I don't give the names here, we are focusing only on the problems, not on the solutions. We try to bring solutions, and we are pushing in that direction. And of course, this needs something that is costing resources and efforts. But you see also that we are overcoming a lot of boundaries and a lot of separations. We are doing this together across all the borders, across the national borders, but also across company borders. And we are trying to bring together solutions. That is a very important message. And it shows that we are avoiding a lot of duplication of effort, and we can repeat and we can build on what others already do, and by this the progress is much faster. That should be just a short summarizing message. I think it's important just to put our position into relation to the big discussion that we have at the moment on societal changes. Now I propose that we are entering into some questions, and what we could also do is walk around here perhaps.
Yes, I suggest that everybody can take a bite, because we have a special lunch served here.
Yeah, okay.
And just walk around in this area and have discussions and questions face to face.
Yes.
So up to you
Yeah,
what
but
you
perhaps we
prefer.
can first take the opportunity to have common questions here, then we take
Exactly.
just a small lunch here or whatever we have here, a small snack, and then we go to the exhibition where we could perhaps discuss in front of the different posters. These are a few selected examples, of course. Yeah, there is not room to present all the variety, but we could take this as just a stimulus to have discussion in more depth here. So let's enter into the first phase. Do we have questions here in common that you would like to raise? Later on you have a question to ask individually, each of us, and you can have your individual parts of that. Common questions?
Well, maybe one.
Yes?
I was in your event in Paris,
Yeah.
and I was really able to understand every single presentation. And here I was feeling that it's really more complex. Is it because I'm tired or otherwise?
I don't know exactly which of the presentations you are referring to, because here were several elements in parallel. Are you talking about presentations today or yesterday?
Yesterday and today. This morning was more complex. I was quite scared about all the chips and all the frames and all the relation between different companies. It's very different than presenting only one project,
Yes.
which is easy to understand, but the connections with so many people, so many engineers, how can this work, in fact?
Yeah, what we today presented is, of course, a kind of summary what is happening now in the kind of final phase. We started, like Eric explained before, from 0 to projects, and these projects were really reasonable in size, let's say something that we used to handle. Then we had this motto of Artemis, think big, and we formed clusters but also the first big projects. And in fact, even Caesar, as one of the earliest projects, was already a very big project.
It was the biggest one by far. Okay.
But also perhaps with the strongest impact. That shows sometimes you need volume, sometimes you need people from the various elements who are contributing. But if you are referring then to this presentation of the Caesar reference technology platform this morning, perhaps, which you, that was by intention shown as a slide here, just to show it is a very, very complex work. If you are going to develop, for instance, the electronic infrastructure, let's say just of a single car, it is extremely complicated. You need to have a lot of different disciplines being involved. If you are then going to construct something larger, let's say the car inside the smart city or inside a mobility system, transportation system, then it is even much more complicated. If you are going to an aircraft, if you are going to an entire production process, sometimes we are living from the fact that for solving a problem, we are simplifying things very much. But sometimes, and especially in our daily life as responsibles for engineering, we need to see the entire chain and need to see which elements are all necessary so that you can put the relationship right together. And development of today's products in many aspects is complicated, but we want to make it easier. Therefore, you should forget about all the complicated slides. This is typically somewhere behind, and the user needs to trust that it is correct. Therefore, we need also institutions that are caring about that the tools, the models are reliable, that you can rely on them, that you depend somehow on them, and then you just use it. And then it's easier again.
You know, the Commission is speaking very often about scientific excellence. Here we are speaking about industrial excellence. And we want to convince you that behind all these projects, you have excellent engineers, the best engineers. We need to be coordinator of this type of projects. We need the very good people. And what we do is complex indeed. It requires a lot of investment from the industry, from the public authorities. I'm adding some money from the Commission. But yes, it is about industrial excellence. This is to secure or to bring at the top level of urban industry. So don't worry, there are also things that I don't understand. I'm on your side for this. But I'm convinced, and I hope you will be convinced, that behind this complexity of the slides, there is complexity of the project, but there is also performance of the results.
Yeah. It's capability to handle this complexity. That was perhaps just demonstrating that we know what we are talking about. But typically, when you are saying we need the excellent scientists, people who are really excellent should have also the capability to simplify things in such a way that everyone can understand, because that then also shows they have made their focus on the essentials so that they can see the overall chain. But sometimes it's difficult to simplify things too much. So you have to do a right balance.
There are hundreds of man years behind
yes,
slides.
Maybe
more than hundreds.
I think there's also an important part for the AIPPs, because we said already that there's a huge variety of assets being developed in previous research projects, and our challenge will be maybe to prove then if they are really can be industrially applied on the one hand side. Maybe we have also sometimes to cut off some of the branches that have been opened in previous projects, because these are too many possibilities that are there, and then we have to find out, okay, what are the major branches that we have to go and to follow.
Okay. Are there further questions here in that community? Otherwise, I propose that we are just taking a snack over there, and then you can contact us individually. Then in a few minutes we go over to these booths here where we can have just a discussion in front of the posters. Okay, so please.
Benedict is doing that, but I can also...
Yeah, we have to explain a little bit the advantage and also the approaches how we are doing that.
then the battery is sometimes reloaded with the current, with the power.